Have you ever wondered why some people seem to win every battle in life without using force, while others lose even when they have more power, money, or talent? More than 2,500 years ago, Sun Tzu wrote a book so powerful that its lessons are still used today by military leaders, billionaires, entrepreneurs, athletes, and master strategists around the world. This book is not just about war. It is about understanding people, controlling emotions, making smarter decisions, and staying ahead in every situation life throws at you. In this audiobook summary of The Art of War, you will discover timeless principles of strategy, discipline, leadership, patience, and psychological mastery that can help you succeed in business, relationships, career, and personal growth. If you keep listening until the end, you will learn how to think several steps ahead of others, avoid unnecessary conflicts, and develop the mindset of a true strategist. This is not just a book summary. It is a guide to thinking smarter, acting wisely, and winning in the modern world. In the first chapter of The Art of War, called Laying Plans, Sun Tzu explains that victory is never accidental. According to him, every success begins long before the battle itself. The people who win in life, business, sports, or leadership are usually the ones who prepare carefully, understand the situation deeply, and think ahead while everyone else acts emotionally. Sun Tzu warns that rushing into conflict without a plan is one of the fastest ways to fail. He believed that strategy is more powerful than brute force, and that careful thinking can save years of struggle. Imagine two students preparing for the same competitive exam. One studies randomly whenever motivation appears, while the other creates a schedule, understands the exam pattern, identifies weak subjects, and practices consistently for months. On exam day, both may have intelligence, but only one has a strategy. Sun Tzu would say that the second student already won the battle before entering the exam hall. The same idea applies in real life. A business fails not because the owner lacks passion, but because they never studied the market, competition, or customer behavior. A person struggles financially not because they are unlucky, but because they make emotional decisions without long-term planning. Laying plans teaches that preparation shapes destiny more than talent alone. Sun Tzu introduces 5 critical factors that determine success: moral influence, weather, terrain, leadership, and discipline. In modern life, these ideas can be understood differently. Moral influence means trust and unity between people. Weather represents timing and external conditions. Terrain refers to understanding your environment and opportunities. Leadership means wisdom, courage, and self-control. Discipline is consistency and organization. Together, these factors decide whether someone succeeds or collapses under pressure. Think about a sports team with talented players but terrible communication and discipline. Even with skill, they lose because strategy and unity matter more than raw ability. One of the most powerful lessons in this chapter is the importance of understanding both yourself and your opponent. Sun Tzu believed that self-awareness is a weapon. If you know your strengths, weaknesses, habits, and emotions, you become harder to defeat. For example, imagine someone trying to start a fitness journey. If they know they usually quit after losing motivation, they can create systems instead of relying on feelings. They might prepare meals in advance, schedule workouts, and track progress daily. By understanding themselves honestly, they increase their chances of success. Most people fail not because they lack potential, but because they never study their own behavior. Sun Tzu also explains that deception is part of strategy. This does not always mean dishonesty. It often means controlling information wisely and staying unpredictable. In business, companies rarely reveal their full plans to competitors. In life, confident people often remain calm even during chaos because they understand that panic spreads weakness. Sometimes the smartest move is not showing all your cards too early. Sun Tzu teaches that intelligence is not loud. It is patient, observant, and calculated. As you listen to this chapter, ask yourself, do I enter important situations with a clear strategy, or do I depend only on hope and emotion? Am I preparing for the future, or reacting to problems after they appear? What would change in my life if I started planning my goals with the same seriousness that generals plan battles? These questions matter because laying plans is ultimately about taking control of your direction instead of drifting through life blindly. Main points. Success is usually decided before the battle begins through preparation and planning. Strategy often defeats raw talent, power, or emotion. Understand yourself honestly, including your strengths, weaknesses, and habits. Timing, discipline, leadership, and awareness are critical for success in every area of life. Avoid acting emotionally in important situations. Think calmly and strategically. Role life application. Before making a big decision, pause and create a plan. Study the situation. Identify possible risks. Prepare alternatives. And think long-term instead of chasing short-term emotions. Reflective questions. What area of my life currently lacks a clear strategy? Do I prepare enough before making important decisions? Am I reacting emotionally instead of thinking logically? What habits are secretly helping or hurting my future success? In the second chapter of The Art of War, called Waging War, Sun Tzu shifts the focus from planning to the harsh reality of conflict itself. He explains that every battle comes with a cost, and the longer a conflict continues, the more damage it causes, not only to resources, but also to energy, morale, focus, and mental clarity. Sun Tzu warns that even the strongest army can collapse if it stays trapped in endless struggle. His message is simple but powerful. Smart people do not waste time, energy, or resources fighting battles that could have been avoided, shortened, or solved strategically. Think about someone constantly arguing with people online, trying to prove themselves in every debate. At first, they feel powerful and justified, but over time, the constant conflict drains their energy, steals their peace of mind, and distracts them from their real goals. Sun Tzu would say that they are winning arguments but losing the larger war of life. The same thing happens in business. Imagine a company obsessed with destroying competitors instead of improving its own product. Months later, they waste money, lose focus, and fall behind while smarter competitors quietly grow stronger. Waging war teaches that prolonged conflict weakens everyone involved, even the apparent winner. Sun Tzu repeatedly emphasizes efficiency. He believed that victory should come quickly and intelligently, not through endless exhaustion. In modern life, many people glorify burnout as if constant struggle automatically leads to success. But Sun Tzu would disagree. He understood that energy is limited. A student who studies effectively for 2 focused hours may achieve more than someone distracted for 10 hours. An employee who works strategically with clear priorities often outperforms someone who works nonstop without direction. The lesson here is not laziness, it is precision. Smart action beats endless action. One of the most interesting ideas in this chapter is that resources determine survival. In ancient warfare, armies needed food, weapons, transportation, and morale to continue fighting. In modern life, your resources are time, money, health, focus, relationships, and emotional stability. If you constantly waste these resources on unnecessary battles, eventually you will feel exhausted and lost. Imagine someone chasing every opportunity, saying yes to everything, trying to impress everyone, and constantly competing with others. On the surface, they appear ambitious, but internally they are slowly collapsing from stress and confusion. Sun Tzu teaches that true strength comes from knowing where to spend your energy and where to walk away. This chapter also highlights the danger of emotional decision-making during conflict. When people become angry, desperate, or impatient, they often make choices that create even bigger problems. Think about someone who loses money in the stock market and immediately invests more out of panic, hoping to recover quickly. Instead of thinking strategically, emotion takes control. Sun Tzu believed that calm thinking during difficult situations is one of the greatest competitive advantages a person can develop. In many cases, the person who stays emotionally balanced wins before the battle even ends. As you listen to this chapter, ask yourself, what unnecessary battles am I currently fighting in my life? Am I wasting energy trying to prove myself to people who do not matter? Am I working intelligently, or am I simply exhausting myself without direction? What would happen if I focused only on battles that truly improve my future? These questions are important because waging war is ultimately about protecting your energy, managing your resources wisely, and understanding that not every conflict deserves your attention. Main points. Every conflict has a cost, and prolonged battles drain energy, focus, and resources. Winning quickly and strategically is smarter than fighting endlessly. Time, money, health, and mental peace are valuable resources that must be protected. Emotional reactions often create bigger problems during conflict. Smart action and efficiency are more powerful than constant struggle or burnout. Role life application. Before entering an argument, competition, or stressful commitment, ask yourself whether the reward is truly worth the emotional and mental cost. Focus your energy only on goals, relationships, and opportunities that genuinely improve your future. Reflective questions. What conflict in my life is draining me the most right now? Am I confusing business with progress? Where am I wasting energy trying to prove myself? What would improve if I became more strategic with my time and attention? In the third chapter of The Art of War, called Attack by Stratagem, Sun Tzu introduces one of the most famous and surprising ideas in the entire book. The greatest victory is the one achieved without fighting. Instead of relying on force, aggression, or destruction, Sun Tzu teaches that true intelligence lies in strategy, patience, and psychological advantage. According to him, the smartest leaders do not rush into conflict. They understand people, predict reactions, weaken problems before they grow, and create situations where victory becomes almost inevitable. This chapter is not about physical war alone. It is about mastering life through intelligent thinking. Imagine two co-workers competing for the same promotion. One constantly attacks the other, spreads negativity, and tries to look superior in front of the boss. The second employee stays calm, improves their skills, helps the team, solve problems quietly, and builds trust over time. Months later, the second employee earns a promotion. Why? Because they focus on strategy instead of unnecessary conflict. Sun Tzu would say that the second person understood the true meaning of victory. They won not by fighting harder, but by positioning themselves wisely. This chapter teaches that in life, the loudest person is not always the strongest. Often, the calmest and most strategic person quietly controls the outcome. One of the core lessons in Attack by Stratagem is the importance of understanding people deeply. Sun Tzu believed that if you understand your opponent's emotions, habits, weaknesses, and motivations, you gain enormous power. In modern life, this applies everywhere. A successful salesperson studies customer psychology before making an offer. A skilled leader understands team morale before making decisions. Even in relationships, many conflicts happen because people react emotionally without understanding the other person's perspective. Sun Tzu teaches that observation is a weapon. The person who listens carefully and studies situations calmly often gains an advantage over those who only react impulsively. Sun Tzu also warns against fighting battles that do not need to happen. Many people destroy opportunities because of pride and ego. Imagine someone leaving a good job after one argument with a manager, or ending a valuable friendship because they refuse to apologize. In that moment, emotion feels powerful, but later regret appears. Sun Tzu believed that wise people think long-term. They do not let temporary anger destroy future success. Sometimes the strongest move is not revenge or confrontation. Sometimes it is patience, restraint, and strategic silence. Another powerful idea in this chapter is that strength comes from unity and preparation. Sun Tzu explains that a divided army becomes weak, no matter how powerful it looks from the outside. The same is true in modern life. A company where employees constantly compete against each other eventually collapses from internal conflict. A family without trust slowly falls apart. Even within yourself, if your goals, habits, and mindset are pulling in different directions, you lose focus and momentum. Strategy begins with alignment. When your actions match your long-term vision, your life becomes more powerful and effective. Think about the people who seem successful from a distance. Often, their success is not based on luck or talent alone. They study situations carefully, avoid unnecessary distractions, build strong relationships, and move with patience. They know that every argument is not worth winning and every opportunity is not worth chasing. Sun Tzu teaches that protecting your peace, reputation, and focus is sometimes more important than proving yourself right. As you listen to this chapter, ask yourself, am I solving problems intelligently or reacting emotionally? How many unnecessary conflicts in my life are caused by ego or impatience? Do I think strategically about my future, or do I only focus on immediate emotions? What would happen if I started observing more, reacting less, and choosing my battles carefully? These questions matter because Attack by Stratagem is ultimately about mastering yourself before trying to defeat anything else. Main points. The greatest victory is achieved without unnecessary conflict or destruction. Strategy, patience, and understanding people are more powerful than aggression alone. Emotional reactions often create problems that intelligence could avoid. Observation and self-control give a major advantage in life, business, and relationships. Protecting long-term success is more important than winning temporary arguments. Unity, trust, and alignment strengthen individuals, teams, and relationships. Real-life application. Before reacting emotionally to a conflict, pause and ask yourself whether your response will help your future or only satisfy temporary pride. Focus on positioning yourself wisely instead of trying to overpower everyone around you. Reflective questions. What unnecessary conflicts in my life are driven by ego? Do I spend more time reacting or observing? Am I thinking long-term before making emotional decisions? What battle in my life could be solved through strategy instead of force? In the 4th chapter of The Art of War, called Tactical Dispositions, Sun Tzu explains a lesson that sounds simple at first but becomes deeply powerful once you truly understand it. Successful people focus first on making themselves impossible to defeat before trying to defeat others. In other words, victory begins with preparation, discipline, positioning, and self-control. Sun Tzu believed that smart leaders do not depend on luck or sudden opportunities. Instead, they quietly build strength, stability, and readiness until the right moment arrives. According to him, the best victories are often invisible long before the world notices them. Imagine a boxer preparing for a championship match. One fighter spends weeks showing off online, talking aggressively and trying to intimidate opponents. The other fighter trains silently every day, improves stamina, studies weaknesses, sharpens technique, and protects mental focus. When the match finally begins, the outcome surprises everyone except the disciplined fighter. Sun Tzu would say the battle was already decided long before they enter the ring. Tactical Dispositions teaches that real strength is built quietly through preparation, not loudly through appearance. This chapter focuses heavily on defense and positioning. Sun Tzu explains that a wise general never places themselves in a vulnerable position unnecessarily. In modern life, this lesson applies everywhere. Think about finances. Someone who saves money consistently, avoids unnecessary debt, and builds multiple income sources becomes far more secure during difficult times. Meanwhile, another person may appear wealthy on social media while secretly living paycheck to paycheck. When unexpected problems appear, one person remains stable while the other collapses under pressure. Sun Tzu teaches that true security is not about looking powerful, it is about actually being prepared. One of the most important ideas in this chapter is patience. Many people fail because they try to force success before they are ready. Imagine someone launching a business without learning the market, understanding customers, or developing the necessary skills. They become excited by the idea of success but ignore the foundation required to sustain it. Sun Tzu believed that wise people wait until conditions favor them before taking major action. This does not mean laziness or fear. It means strategic timing. A farmer cannot force crops to grow overnight no matter how impatient they become. In the same way, success often requires invisible preparation before visible results appear. Sun Tzu also explains that great leaders create situations where success becomes more likely. Instead of depending on motivation alone, they build systems and environments that support victory. Think about someone trying to improve their health. If unhealthy food fills their house and they rely entirely on willpower, failure becomes more likely. But if they prepare healthy meals, create routines, and remove distractions, they make success easier. This chapter teaches that your environment shapes your outcomes more than most people realize. Smart people design conditions that help them succeed instead of constantly fighting against chaos. Another fascinating lesson from Tactical Dispositions is the idea that confidence should come from preparation, not arrogance. Many people pretend to be confident while secretly feeling insecure because they have not done the necessary work. Real confidence comes from repetition, discipline, and readiness. A public speaker who practices thoroughly feels calm on stage. A student who studies consistently feels less fear during exams. A business owner who understands their industry handles challenges with more stability. Sun Tzu believed that calmness under pressure is usually the result of preparation, not personality. As you listen to this chapter, ask yourself, am I building a strong foundation for my future, or am I chasing quick results without preparation? In what areas of my life am I vulnerable because I ignored discipline or planning? Do I depend too much on motivation instead of creating systems that support success? What would happen if I focused first on becoming stronger, calmer, and more prepared before chasing bigger victories? These questions matter because tactical dispositions is ultimately about creating stability within yourself so that opportunities, challenges, and pressure cannot easily break you. Main points. Success begins with making yourself difficult to defeat through preparation and discipline. Real strength is built quietly over time, not through appearance or arrogance. Strategic positioning and patience often create better results than rushing emotionally. Preparation creates confidence and stability during pressure. Strong systems and environments increase the chances of success. Real-life application. Build habits, routines, and financial or emotional stability before chasing larger goals or opportunities. Focus on preparation instead of constantly seeking instant results or external validation. Reflective questions. What area of my life currently lacks a strong foundation? Am I trying to force success before I am truly prepared? What systems or habits could make success easier for me? Is my confidence based on real preparation or temporary emotion? In the 5th chapter of The Art of War, called Energy, Sun Tzu explores one of the most underestimated forces behind success, the ability to direct energy efficiently and create momentum. He explains that victory is not always about working harder than everyone else. Sometimes it is about using effort intelligently, combining preparation with timing, and creating situations where small actions produce massive results. According to Sun Tzu, skilled leaders understand how to organize people, manage pressure, and channel energy in ways that turn ordinary effort into extraordinary power. This chapter teaches that success is often less about raw strength and more about controlled momentum. Think about a small snowball rolling down a mountain. At first, it seems harmless and insignificant, but as it gains momentum, it becomes powerful enough to destroy almost anything in its path. Sun Tzu believed human effort works the same way. Small, consistent actions repeated over time can create enormous results. Imagine someone who spends just 1 hour every day learning a valuable skill like communication, coding, fitness, or investing. At first, progress feels slow and invisible. But after months or years, that person becomes far ahead of others who relied only on motivation or random burst of effort. Energy teaches that control consistency creates power. Sun Tzu also explains that organization multiplies strength. A disorganized army wastes energy, while an organized one moves efficiently and confidently. In modern life, this idea applies to almost everything. Think about 2 people with the same amount of talent and time. One constantly multitasks, gets distracted, sleeps irregularly, and jumps between goals without direction. The other follows routines, protects focus, prioritizes important work, and eliminates unnecessary distractions. Over time, the organized person achieves far more with less stress. Sun Tzu teaches that chaos drains energy while structure amplifies it. One of the most fascinating ideas in this chapter is a balance between direct and indirect force. Sun Tzu explains that predictable actions alone rarely create victory. Successful people know when to be straightforward and when to surprise others creatively. For example, imagine a small business competing against giant companies with huge budgets. Instead of trying to fight directly with money and advertising, the smaller company builds a loyal community online, creates authentic relationships with customers, and offers something unique. Eventually, they gain attention not by overpowering competitors, but by thinking differently. Sun Tzu believed that flexibility and creativity allow weaker forces to defeat stronger ones. This chapter also highlights the importance of emotional energy. Many people underestimate how much stress, negativity, and overthinking weaken performance. Imagine someone beginning their day by checking negative news, arguing online, and comparing themselves constantly to others on social media. By the time they sit down to work, their mental energy is already exhausted. Sun Tzu would say they entered the battle tired before it even began. In contrast, people who protect their focus, manage emotions, and maintain discipline often outperform more talented individuals simply because their energy is directed wisely. Another powerful lesson from energy is that leaders influence the momentum of others. A calm and focused leader can inspire confidence in an entire team, while fearful or disorganized leader spreads panic quickly. Think about a family facing financial problems. If one person stays calm, creates a plan, and motivates everyone to work together, the family becomes stronger under pressure. But if panic takes control, confusion spreads and problems grow worse. Sun Tzu teaches that energy is contagious. Your mindset, habits, and emotional state affect not only you but also the people around you. As you listen to this chapter, ask yourself, where's my energy currently going every day? Am I building momentum toward my goals, or wasting energy on distractions and negativity? Do my routines create strength or chaos? What would happen if I focus on small, consistent improvements instead of chasing sudden success? These questions matter because energy is ultimately about mastering the flow of effort, focus, and momentum so that your actions become more powerful over time instead of exhausting you. Main points. Success comes from directing energy intelligently, not simply working harder. Small, consistent actions create massive momentum over time. Organization and structure multiply effectiveness and reduce wasted energy. Flexibility and creativity often defeat brute force or larger competition. Emotional energy and focus strongly affect performance and decision-making. Momentum can either strengthen your future or slowly destroy your progress depending on your habits. Real-life application. Create routines that protect your focus, reduce distractions, and build steady progress every day. Avoid wasting mental energy on unnecessary negativity, arguments, or comparison. Reflective questions. Where am I wasting the most energy in my daily life? Do my habits create momentum or exhaustion? Am I relying on motivation instead of consistent systems? What small action repeated daily could completely change my future over time? In the 6th chapter of The Art of War, called Weak Points and Strong, Sun Tzu explains that victory often depends on one critical skill, knowing where to apply pressure and where to avoid resistance. Instead of attacking strength directly, wise strategists study weaknesses, gaps, distractions, and blind spots. Sun Tzu believed that the smartest people do not waste energy fighting impossible battles head-on. They adapt, observe carefully, and strike where opportunities are greatest. This chapter teaches that success is not always about being stronger than everyone else. It is about understanding situations better than others do. Imagine a small startup company trying to compete against a giant corporation. If the startup tries to fight in the exact same way, spending huge amounts on advertising, opening expensive offices, or copying massive systems, it will probably fail quickly. But if the smaller company focuses on what the giant ignores, such as personal customer service, niche audiences, or faster innovation, suddenly it gains an advantage. Sun Tzu would say that the startup avoided the strong point and attacked the weak point. The same principle works in life. People who understand where opportunities exist often outperform people with more resources but less awareness. One of the most powerful ideas in this chapter is flexibility. Sun Tzu compares strategy to water flowing around obstacles. Water does not waste energy trying to break every rock in its path. It adapts, changes direction, and still reaches its destination. In modern life, many people suffer because they become rigid in their thinking. Imagine someone who loses one career opportunity and immediately believes their future is ruined. Instead of adapting, learning new skills, or exploring alternatives, they become stuck mentally. Sun Tzu teaches that flexibility is strength. People who can adjust to changing situations survive and grow faster than those who cling stubbornly to one path. Sun Tzu also explains the importance of controlling the situation instead of letting the situation control you. Skilled leaders force opponents into uncomfortable positions while protecting themselves from unnecessary pressure. Think about a chess player who quietly controls the center of the board. Their opponent may still have strong pieces, but slowly they run out of good moves because the situation has been shaped against them. In everyday life, this could mean preparing before an important meeting, studying before an exam, or saving money before a financial crisis happens. People who prepare early often create advantages that others notice too late. Another fascinating lesson from Weak Points and Strong is the idea that appearances can be deceptive. Sun Tzu believed that wise strategists do not reveal everything openly. Sometimes appearing weak can make others careless, while appearing unpredictable creates hesitation and confusion. In modern terms, this means not everyone who looks confident is truly prepared, and not everyone who appears quiet or underestimated is powerless. Think about athletes who stay humble and silent during training, but dominate when competition arrives. Their focus remains on preparation, not attention. Sun Tzu teaches that protecting your strategy and avoiding unnecessary attention can sometimes become an advantage itself. This chapter also reveals how distractions weaken people. If your attention is divided, your strength decreases. Imagine trying to improve your health while constantly staying up late, scrolling endlessly through social media, eating impulsively, and skipping routines. Even if you have potential, your energy becomes scattered. Sun Tzu believed concentrated focus creates power. When your energy moves in too many directions at once, you become easy to defeat by stress, confusion, and poor decisions. As you listen to this chapter, ask yourself, what are the weak points in my life that I keep ignoring? Am I wasting energy attacking situations the wrong way instead of adapting strategically? Where could flexibility improve my future? What distractions are secretly weakening my focus and momentum? These questions matter because weak points and strong is ultimately about understanding that intelligence, adaptability, and awareness often matter more than force alone. Main points. Smart strategy focuses on weaknesses and opportunities instead of attacking strength directly. Flexibility and adaptation are major sources of power. Preparation allows you to control situations instead of reacting emotionally to them. Concentrated focus creates strength, while distractions weaken performance. Appearances can be misleading. Quiet preparation is often more powerful than loud confidence. Real-life application. Identify areas where you are wasting energy fighting unnecessary resistance and look for smarter, more strategic alternatives. Learn to adapt quickly when plans change instead of becoming emotionally stuck. Protect your focus by reducing distractions and concentrating your energy on what matters most. Reflective questions. What unnecessary struggle in my life could be solved through a smart approach? Where am I being too rigid instead of adaptable? What distractions are weakening my focus daily? Am I paying enough attention to opportunities others overlook? In the 7th chapter of The Art of War, called Maneuvering, Sun Tzu dives into one of the most difficult challenges in both war and life: how to move through complex situations without losing control, direction, or unity. He explains that success is not only about having a good strategy, it is also about executing that strategy while dealing with confusion, pressure, distractions, and constantly changing circumstances. According to Sun Tzu, many people fail not because they lack intelligence, but because they panic, lose coordination, or make emotional decisions when things become difficult. This chapter teaches that navigating challenges calmly and wisely is one of the greatest skills a person can develop. Imagine a group of friends starting a business together. At the beginning, everyone feels excited and motivated. But as problems appear, financial pressure, disagreements, competition, delays, tension slowly grows. One person becomes impatient, another stops communicating clearly, and eventually the entire team loses focus. Sun Tzu would say that poor maneuvering destroyed them. The problem was not only external difficulty, it was the inability to stay organized and united during pressure. The same thing happens in relationships, careers, and personal goals. Many people start strong, but very few know how to handle obstacles without losing discipline. One of the biggest lessons in this chapter is the danger of acting impulsively. Sun Tzu repeatedly warns that rushing blindly into action creates chaos. Think about someone who receives criticism at work and immediately reacts emotionally by arguing, quitting, or making reckless decisions. In that moment, emotions take control instead of strategy. But a calm person pauses, studies the situation, and chooses the smartest response instead of the fastest one. Sun Tzu believed that patience during confusion gives enormous power because emotional people often defeat themselves before anyone else needs to. This chapter also highlights the importance of communication and leadership. In warfare, armies collapse quickly when soldiers become confused or disconnected from leadership. In modern life, poor communication destroys families, friendships, businesses, and teams every day. Imagine a football team where players stop trusting each other and everyone tries to become the hero individually. Even talented players fail because unity disappears. Sun Tzu teaches that coordination multiplies strength. People who move together with shared direction become far more powerful than individuals acting selfishly. Another fascinating idea in maneuvering is that every path contains hidden risks. Sometimes opportunities that look exciting from a distance contain dangerous consequences underneath. Imagine someone chasing quick wealth through risky investments without understanding the dangers involved. At first, the rewards seem attractive, but eventually poor decisions create massive losses. Sun Tzu teaches that wise people think carefully before moving. They study the terrain, the risks, the timing, and the long-term consequences instead of reacting only to immediate temptation. This lesson is incredibly relevant today because modern life constantly pushes people toward impulsive decisions driven by emotion, social pressure, or fear of missing out. Sun Tzu also explains that exhaustion weakens judgment. A tired army makes mistakes more easily, and the same happens to people in daily life. Someone who never rests, constantly multitasks, and overloads themselves mentally often becomes impatient, distracted, and emotionally reactive. This is why burnout damages not only health but also decision-making ability. Sun Tzu understood that protecting mental clarity is part of strategy. Sometimes the smartest move is slowing down long enough to regain focus before making important decisions. Think about driving through heavy fog at night. If you panic and speed blindly, you increase the risk of crashing. But if you stay calm, move carefully, and focus on the road step by step, you eventually reach your destination safely. Maneuvering teaches that life often works the same way. There will be moments when the path feels uncertain, but emotional panic usually creates more danger than the situation itself. As you listen to this chapter, ask yourself, how do I react when life becomes stressful or unpredictable? Do I stay calm and strategic, or do I let emotion control my decisions? Am I communicating clearly with the people around me, or creating confusion through impatience and frustration? What areas of my life currently require more patience, discipline, and careful movement? These questions matter because maneuvering is ultimately about learning how to navigate pressure without losing yourself in the process. Main points. Success depends not only on strategy but also on calm execution during difficult situations. Emotional reactions and impulsive decisions often create unnecessary chaos. Communication, unity, and leadership are essential for long-term success. Patience and careful movement reduce risk during uncertain situations. Exhaustion weakens judgment, focus, and emotional control. Role life application. Pause before reacting emotionally during stressful moments and focus on responding strategically instead of impulsively. Build strong communication and trust within your relationships, teams, or personal goals. Protect your mental clarity through rest, organization, and disciplined routines. Reflective questions. How do I usually respond when things stop going according to plan? Am I allowing emotion to control important decisions? What confusion or lack of communication is hurting my life right now? Where do I need more patience and strategic thinking instead of rushing blindly? In the 8th chapter of The Art of War, called Variation in Tactics, Sun Tzu teaches a lesson that becomes more valuable the older you get. Rigid thinking is dangerous. Life constantly changes, and people who refuse to adapt eventually get left behind. According to Sun Tzu, no strategy works forever, no situation stays the same, and no successful leader survives by following one fixed formula blindly. True intelligence lies in flexibility, the ability to adjust your actions, mindset, and decisions according to changing conditions without losing your larger goal. This chapter is about learning how to think dynamically instead of mechanically. Imagine a successful restaurant owner who becomes famous for one style of food. For years, customers love it, business grows, and everything seems stable. But over time, customer preferences change. Delivery apps transform the industry, and competitors begin offering better experiences. If the owner refuses to evolve because this is how things have always worked, the business slowly dies. Another owner, however, studies the changes, experiments carefully, improves the menu, adapts to technology, and continues growing. Sun Tzu would say the second owner understands variation in tactics. Success does not belong to the strongest person forever. It belongs to the one who adapts intelligently. One of the key lessons in this chapter is that every strength can become a weakness if used blindly. Confidence can become arrogance. Discipline can become rigidity. Patience can become hesitation. Even hard work can become self-destruction if there is no balance. Sun Tzu believed wise people constantly evaluate their own behavior and adjust before problems grow larger. Think about someone obsessed with productivity. At first, their discipline helps them succeed, but eventually they ignore rest, relationships, and health. Slowly, burnout destroys the very success they worked so hard to build. Sun Tzu teaches that balance and awareness are essential because extremes often create hidden dangers. This chapter also explains the importance of understanding context. The same action that works perfectly in one situation may fail completely in another. Imagine a football coach using the exact same strategy against every opponent regardless of their strengths and weaknesses. Eventually, other teams study the pattern and exploit it easily. In modern life, many people make the same mistake. They treat every conversation, challenge, or opportunity with the same mindset instead of adapting thoughtfully. Sun Tzu believes successful people remain alert and responsive. They observe carefully instead of operating on autopilot. Another fascinating idea in variation in tactics is that emotions can trap people into predictable behavior. Fear, anger, pride, greed, and impatience often push people into making the same mistakes repeatedly. Imagine someone who constantly leaves projects unfinished whenever progress becomes slow or difficult. Every time discomfort appears, they abandon the process and chase something new. Years later, they wonder why nothing meaningful lasts in their life. Sun Tzu teaches that understanding your emotional patterns is part of strategy. If others can predict your reactions easily, life itself begins controlling you. Sun Tzu also warns leaders about 5 dangerous traits that can lead to failure: recklessness, cowardice, quick temper, pride, and overprotectiveness. These weaknesses still destroy people today. A reckless entrepreneur risks everything impulsively. A fearful person never takes opportunities. Someone with a quick temper ruins relationships and careers. Excessive pride prevents learning. Overprotectiveness creates emotional dependence and poor judgment. Sun Tzu's brilliance comes from understanding that the greatest battles are often internal. Many people are defeated not by external enemies, but by their inability to manage themselves. Think about how rapidly the world changes today. Technology evolves, industries shift, social trends change, and opportunities disappear faster than ever. The people who survive and thrive are usually not the ones with the highest intelligence alone. They are the ones willing to learn, adapt, and evolve continuously. Variation in tactics reminds us that flexibility is not weakness, it is survival. As you listen to this chapter, ask yourself, am I adapting to changes in my life or resisting them out of comfort and fear? What habits or emotional patterns keep repeating the same problems in my life? Do I respond to situations thoughtfully, or do I rely on the same reactions every time? What would improve if I became more flexible in my thinking and decision-making? These questions matter because variation in tactics is ultimately about staying mentally agile in a world that never stops changing. Main points. Rigid thinking becomes dangerous when situations change. Adaptability and flexibility are essential for long-term success. Every strength can become a weakness if used without balance. Emotional patterns often make people predictable and vulnerable. Wise people adjust strategies according to context instead of blindly repeating old methods. Real-life application. Regularly evaluate your habits, strategies, and routines to see whether they still fit your current goals and circumstances. Learn to adapt without losing your core values or long-term vision. Reflective questions. Where in my life am I resisting necessary change? What emotional habits repeatedly create problems for me? Am I thinking flexibly or clinging to outdated methods? What skill or mindset do I need to adapt to my future successfully? In the 9th chapter of The Art of War, called The Army on the March, Sun Tzu focuses on one of the most important survival skills in both war and life, the ability to observe carefully and understand what is happening beneath the surface. He explains that wise leaders do not rely only on words or appearances. Instead, they study behavior, patterns, environments, and small signals that reveal hidden truths. According to Sun Tzu, people who pay attention to subtle signs gain enormous advantages because they notice danger, opportunity, weakness, and change before everyone else does. This chapter is ultimately about awareness, the kind of awareness that separates thoughtful people from careless ones. Imagine walking into a workplace where everyone smiles politely, but tension fills the room. Conversations stop when certain people enter. Managers avoid eye contact. Employees look exhausted and frustrated. Even without anyone explaining the situation directly, you can sense that something is wrong. Sun Tzu believed that reality often reveals itself through indirect signs like these. In life, successful people develop the ability to read situations calmly instead of blindly accepting appearances. They understand that word can lie, but patterns usually tell the truth. One of the biggest lessons in this chapter is learning how to recognize warning signs early. Sun Tzu explains that armies often show clues before collapse: disorder, confusion, low morale, inconsistent behavior, and emotional instability. In modern life, the same principle applies everywhere. A friendship may begin falling apart long before the final argument happens. A business may show signs of failure before bankruptcy appears. Even mental burnout often sends warnings: exhaustion, irritability, lack of focus, and emotional numbness before complete collapse occurs. The problem is that most people ignore small warnings until problems become impossible to avoid. Sun Tzu teaches that paying attention early can save you from disasters later. Think about someone driving a car while ignoring strange engine noises because the vehicle still seems fine. Weeks later, the engine breaks down completely, creating a much larger problem and expense. Life works the same way. Small issues ignored repeatedly often grow into major crises. The Army on the March teaches that awareness and early action are forms of intelligence. Sun Tzu also explains the importance of emotional observation. Skilled leaders study not only situations but also people's emotions, motivations, and energy. Imagine a teacher noticing that one usually energetic student suddenly becomes quiet and disconnected. Instead of ignoring the change, the teacher checks on them and discovers the student is struggling personally. That small observation could completely change someone's life. In modern society, many people listen to respond instead of observing to understand. Sun Tzu believed that calm observation creates insight, while emotional impulsiveness creates blindness. Another fascinating idea in this chapter is the importance of environment. Sun Tzu explains that terrain, weather, and surroundings affect the strength and behavior of armies. In modern life, your environment influences your mindset more than you may realize. Imagine trying to stay productive in a room filled with distractions, negativity, and constant interruptions. Over time, even disciplined people lose focus in unhealthy environments. On the other hand, supportive surroundings can increase motivation, creativity, and emotional stability. Sun Tzu teaches that smart people pay attention to the environments they place themselves in because surroundings shape decisions and behavior quietly over time. This chapter also warns against arrogance and overconfidence. Sometimes people become so sure of themselves that they stop observing carefully. A company dominating its industry may ignore new competitors until it is too late. A person confident in a relationship may stop appreciating their partner and slowly destroy trust without realizing it. Sun Tzu believed that constant awareness keeps people grounded and prepared. The moment you assume you already know everything, you stop seeing reality clearly. As you listen to this chapter, ask yourself, am I truly paying attention to the signs around me, or am I ignoring important warnings? What patterns keep repeating in my relationships, habits, or decisions? Are there environments in my life that strengthen me or weaken me quietly over time? How often do I observe calmly before reacting emotionally? These questions matter because the Army on the March is ultimately about learning to see clearly in a world where most people move through life distracted and unaware. Main points. Small signs and patterns often reveal bigger truths before problems fully appear. Awareness and observation are powerful forms of intelligence. Ignoring early warning signs usually leads to larger problems later. Emotions, environments, and behavior patterns strongly influence outcomes. Calm observation creates insight, while impulsive reactions create blindness. Real-life application. Pay closer attention to repeated patterns in your life, relationships, work, and emotions instead of ignoring subtle warning signs. Improve your environment by reducing distractions and surrounding yourself with people and habits that support growth. Reflective questions. What warning signs in my life have I been ignoring recently? What environments are affecting my mindset and energy the most? Do I observe situations carefully before reacting emotionally? What repeating patterns in my life are trying to teach me something? In the 10th chapter of The Art of War, called Terrain, Sun Tzu explains that success is deeply influenced by the environment you operate in. According to him, even the strongest army can fail if it ignores the conditions around it, while a smaller and weaker force can achieve victory by understanding terrain better than its opponent. But this chapter is not only about mountains, rivers, and battlefields. In modern life, terrain represents the situations, environments, opportunities, relationships, and circumstances that shape your decisions and outcomes every single day. Sun Tzu teaches that wise people study their environment carefully before taking action because the wrong environment can quietly destroy even the best strategy. Imagine planting a healthy seed in two different places. One seed is planted in fertile soil with sunlight and water, while the other is planted in dry, rocky ground. Both seeds may have equal potential, but only one has the right environment to grow. Human life works the same way. A talented person surrounded by negativity, distractions, and toxic relationships may struggle constantly, while someone with average talent but a supportive environment can grow rapidly. Sun Tzu believed that understanding your surroundings is one of the keys to survival and success. One of the most important lessons in this chapter is recognizing when you are in a favorable or dangerous position. Sun Tzu describes different kinds of terrain, some easy to move through, some risky, and some nearly impossible to escape once entered. In modern life, people often walk into dangerous terrain without realizing it. Imagine someone taking a high-paying job that destroys their mental health, relationships, and personal freedom. At first, the opportunity looks attractive, but over time they feel trapped and exhausted. Sun Tzu would say they failed to study the terrain before entering it. This chapter teaches that not every opportunity is truly beneficial, and wise people evaluate long-term consequences before committing themselves. Sun Tzu also explains that understanding your own limitations is part of strategy. Many people fail because they overestimate themselves or ignore reality. Think about a beginner investor who risks all their savings trying to become rich quickly because they watched a few success stories online. Instead of respecting the complexity of the situation, they act with overconfidence and eventually lose everything. Sun Tzu believed that humility and awareness protect people from unnecessary disasters. The smartest individuals are not those who pretend to know everything. They are the ones who study situations carefully and adapt accordingly. Another fascinating lesson from terrain is that leadership changes depending on the environment. A strategy that works perfectly in one situation may fail completely in another. Imagine a strict manager who succeeds in a high-pressure corporate environment, but fails badly when leading a creative team that requires freedom and collaboration. Sun Tzu teaches that effective leaders adjust their approach based on the people and circumstances around them. This idea is incredibly important today because many people try to force one personality or strategy into every situation instead of adapting intelligently. This chapter also highlights the danger of emotional attachment to comfort zones. Sometimes people stay in environments that slowly weaken them simply because change feels uncomfortable. A person may remain in unhealthy relationships, toxic workplaces, or destructive habits because familiarity feels safer than uncertainty. Sun Tzu teaches that wise people have the courage to recognize when the terrain is working against them. Staying in the wrong environment for too long quietly drains confidence, focus, and growth. Think about athletes preparing for competition. Before the game even begins, they study the field, weather, crowd conditions, and opponent tendencies. They understand that preparation is not only about improving themselves, but also about understanding the environment they are entering. In the same way, life rewards people who pay attention to context instead of acting blindly. As you listen to this chapter, ask yourself, what kind of environment am I currently living and growing in? Are the people, habits, and situations around me helping me become stronger or slowly weakening me? Have I entered situations without truly understanding the long-term consequences? What changes would happen in my life if I became more intentional about the terrain I place myself in every day? These questions matter because terrain is ultimately about realizing that success is not only determined by who you are, but also by where and how you choose to operate. Main points. Your environment strongly influences your success, mindset, and decisions. Wise people study situations carefully before taking action. Not every opportunity is beneficial in the long term. Humility and awareness protect people from unnecessary risks and overconfidence. Different situations require different strategies and leadership styles. Staying too long in toxic or limiting environments weakens growth and potential. Real-life application. Evaluate whether your current habits, relationships, workplace, and routines are supporting your long-term goals or silently damaging them. Choose environments that encourage growth, discipline, learning, and emotional stability. Reflective questions. What environments in my life are helping me grow? Where am I feeling trapped or emotionally drained? Have I been ignoring warning signs because change feels uncomfortable? What kind of terrain would bring out the best version of me? In the 11th chapter of The Art of War, called The 9 Situations, Sun Tzu explains that people behave differently depending on the situation they are placed in. A person who is relaxed and comfortable thinks differently from someone under pressure, and someone with no escape route fights very differently from someone who still has easy options available. Sun Tzu believed that understanding human psychology during different situations is one of the greatest advantages a leader can possess. This chapter is not only about armies moving across battlefields, it is about understanding how pressure, fear, opportunity, uncertainty, and survival change human behavior. More importantly, it teaches how to adapt your actions according to the situation instead of reacting blindly. Imagine two students preparing for an important exam. One still has several months left and studies casually because the deadline feels far away. The other realizes the exam is only a week away and suddenly becomes intensely focused, disciplined, and determined. The situation changed their behavior completely. Sun Tzu understood this deeply. He believed that urgency can either create strength or panic depending on how people handle it. Throughout this chapter, he describes different kinds of situations armies face: easy situations, dangerous situations, trap situations, desperate situations, and explains that each one requires a different mindset and strategy. One of the most powerful lessons in this chapter is that comfort can sometimes make people weak. When people feel too safe, they often become careless, distracted, and lazy. Think about someone who constantly says they will start tomorrow. Because there is no immediate pressure, they delay action endlessly. But suddenly, a crisis appears, maybe financial problems, health issues, or lost opportunity, and now they are forced to act seriously. Sun Tzu teaches that wise people do not wait for desperation before becoming disciplined. They create urgency internally before life forces it upon them externally. At the same time, Sun Tzu warns about the dangers of panic. In difficult situations, emotional people often make reckless decisions because fear controls their thinking. Imagine someone losing their job unexpectedly and immediately assuming their entire future is ruined. Instead of thinking strategically, they become overwhelmed and hopeless. Another person in the same situation stays calm, updates their skills, reaches out to contacts, and searches for new opportunities. Over time, the second person recovers faster because they manage the situation intelligently instead of emotionally. Sun Tzu believed that pressure reveals character. Difficult situations do not create weakness. They expose weaknesses that already existed. Another fascinating idea in the 9 situations is that people become incredibly powerful when they fully commit. Sun Tzu describes situations where armies fight hardest because retreat is impossible. In modern life, many people keep one foot in and one foot out of their goals. They want success, but they avoid full commitment because they fear failure or discomfort. Think about someone wanting to become healthier while refusing to change habits consistently, or someone dreaming of building a business while treating it only as a casual hobby. Sun Tzu teaches that serious results often require serious commitment. When people remove excuses and commit fully, their focus and energy change dramatically. This chapter also highlights the importance of leadership during uncertainty. In confusing or dangerous situations, people naturally look for direction. A calm leader can stabilize an entire group, while a fearful leader spreads panic quickly. Think about a family facing a financial crisis. If one person remains composed, creates a plan, and encourages everyone to stay united, hope begins to return. But if fear and blame dominate the environment, stress multiplies. Sun Tzu understood that leadership is tested most during difficult moments, not comfortable ones. The 9 situations also reminds us that life constantly changes. Some seasons feel safe and stable, while others feel chaotic and uncertain. The key is not avoiding difficult situations entirely. That is impossible. The real skill is learning how to think clearly and adapt wisely no matter what situation you are in. Sun Tzu teaches that people who understand both themselves and their circumstances become much harder to defeat. As you listen to this chapter, ask yourself, how do I behave under pressure? Do I become focused or emotionally overwhelmed? Am I waiting for a crisis before taking my goals seriously? What situations in my life currently require courage, adaptability, or stronger leadership from me? What would happen if I treated my future with urgency before life forced me to? These questions matter because the 9 situations is ultimately about learning how to remain strategic and emotionally strong no matter what challenges life places in front of you. Main points. Different situations require different strategies, mindsets, and responses. Comfort can create laziness, while urgency can create focus and determination. Pressure reveals character and exposes hidden strengths or weaknesses. Emotional panic often creates worse problems during difficult situations. Full commitment creates stronger focus, discipline, and momentum. Leadership becomes most important during uncertainty and crisis. Real-life application. Stop waiting for emergencies before taking your goals, health, finances, or future seriously. Practice staying calm during stressful situations so you can think strategically instead of emotionally. Reflective questions. How do I usually respond when pressure enters my life? What goal in my life needs greater commitment from me? Am I relying too much on comfort and delaying important action? What difficult situation could actually become an opportunity for growth and transformation? In the 12th chapter of The Art of War, called The Attack by Fire, Sun Tzu explores the destructive power of chaos, timing, and emotional escalation. While the chapter literally discusses using fire as a weapon in warfare, the deeper lesson is about understanding how quickly situations can spiral out of control when conditions are right. Fire spreads fast, consumes everything in its path, and becomes almost impossible to stop once it grows large enough. Sun Tzu uses this idea to teach an important truth about life. Small problems, emotional reactions, and hidden tensions can become devastating if people fail to manage them early and intelligently. Think about a simple disagreement between two friends. At first, it could have been solved calmly with one honest conversation. But instead, both people stay silent, misunderstandings grow, resentment builds, and eventually the friendship collapses completely. What started as a small spark became a destructive fire because nobody handled it wisely in the beginning. Sun Tzu believed many disasters in life happen this way. Relationships, businesses, careers, and even mental health problems often begin with small warning signs that people ignore until the damage becomes overwhelming. One of the biggest lessons in this chapter is the importance of timing. Sun Tzu explains that fire becomes effective only under the right conditions. In the same way, success in life often depends on acting at the right moment instead of reacting impulsively. Imagine an investor who patiently studies the market for months and waits for the perfect opportunity, while others rush emotionally into trends because of hype and fear of missing out. Over time, the patient investor often achieves better results because they understand timing instead of chasing excitement. Sun Tzu teaches that wise people do not confuse movement with progress. Sometimes waiting calmly for the right moment is more powerful than acting immediately. This chapter also highlights how emotions can spread like fire. Fear, anger, panic, jealousy, and negativity are contagious. Think about a workplace where one frustrated employee constantly complains and spreads negativity. Slowly, motivation decreases, trust weakens, and the entire environment becomes toxic. The same thing happens online, where outrage spreads faster than reason because emotional reactions attract attention quickly. Sun Tzu understood that emotional chaos weakens judgment and destroys stability. He believed calm thinking during emotional situations is one of the greatest advantages a person can develop. Another fascinating lesson from the attack by fire is the danger of destroying things recklessly without considering long-term consequences. Fire may destroy the enemy, but it can also become uncontrollable and harm everyone nearby. In modern life, many people act this way emotionally. Someone becomes angry during an argument and says words they can never take back. A business owner makes reckless decisions out of pride and damages their reputation permanently. A person burns bridges in relationships because temporary anger feels more important than long-term peace. Sun Tzu teaches that intelligence is not only about creating power, it is also about controlling destruction before it spreads too far. Sun Tzu also emphasizes preparation and awareness. Fire attacks succeed only when conditions are studied carefully in advance. In life, many crises can be prevented by preparation. Imagine someone who ignores their health for years despite warning signs like stress, poor sleep, and exhaustion. Eventually, their body forces them to stop through illness or burnout. Another person notices early signs, improves routines, exercises consistently, and protects their well-being before problems grow severe. The second person understood what Sun Tzu was teaching. Wise people deal with sparks before they become uncontrollable fires. This chapter also reminds us that destruction can happen internally, not just externally. Negative thoughts repeated daily slowly burn away confidence, focus, and peace of mind. Many people become their own source of destruction because they constantly feed fear, comparison, anger, or self-doubt. Sun Tzu would argue that mastering your internal world is just as important as handling external challenges because inner chaos eventually affects every decision you make. As you listen to this chapter, ask yourself, what small fires in my life have I been ignoring? Are my emotions helping me think clearly or quietly destroying my peace and judgment? Am I acting impulsively when patience would serve me better? What relationships, habits, or situations need calm attention before they grow into larger problems? These questions matter because the attack by fire is ultimately about understanding how quickly destruction spreads when wisdom, patience, and emotional control disappear. Main points. Small problems become dangerous when ignored for too long. Timing is critical. Wise action at the right moment is more powerful than impulsive action. Emotions like anger, fear, and negativity spread quickly and affect everyone around you. Reckless reactions can create long-term damage that cannot easily be reversed. Preparation and awareness prevent many crises before they grow larger. Internal emotional chaos can be just as destructive as external conflict. Real-life application. Address problems early instead of avoiding uncomfortable conversations, responsibilities, or warning signs. Practice emotional control during stressful situations instead of reacting impulsively. Reflective questions. What small issue in my life could become a major problem if ignored? Do I react emotionally too quickly during conflict? Where would patience improve my decisions and relationships? What negative thoughts or habits are quietly damaging my future? In the final chapter of The Art of War, called The Use of Spies, Sun Tzu reveals what he believed to be one of the greatest advantages in any conflict: information. According to him, wars are not won only by strength, weapons, or numbers. They are won by knowledge. The person who understands what others fail to see gains enormous power. But this chapter is not simply about secret agents and espionage. At its core, it is about observation, intelligence, awareness, and understanding human behavior deeply enough to make smarter decisions before problems even appear. Sun Tzu teaches that information is one of the most valuable resources a person can possess. Imagine two entrepreneurs starting businesses in the same industry. One relies only on hope and assumptions, while the other studies customer behavior, market trends, competitors, and future risks carefully before making decisions. Months later, the second entrepreneur adapts faster, avoids costly mistakes, and grows steadily while the first struggles blindly. Sun Tzu would say the second person understood the true value of intelligence. In life, people often fail not because they lack effort, but because they act without enough understanding. One of the most powerful lessons in this chapter is that successful people pay attention to details others ignore. Think about a skilled poker player sitting silently at the table. While everyone focuses only on their own cards, the best player studies facial expressions, habits, reactions, and emotional changes. They gather information constantly without drawing attention to themselves. In modern life, emotionally intelligent people do something similar. They notice patterns in conversations, shifts in energy, hidden intentions, and unspoken emotions. Sun Tzu believed that awareness gives people the ability to act strategically instead of react blindly. This chapter also explains that information reduces unnecessary risk. Imagine someone accepting a job offer only because of the salary without researching the company culture, leadership, or work environment. A few months later, they feel trapped in a toxic workplace they never truly understood beforehand. Another person takes time to ask questions, study the environment, and gather honest feedback before making the decision. The second person protects themselves because they value information before action. Sun Tzu teaches that impatience often causes avoidable suffering. Another fascinating idea in the use of spies is that people reveal more than they realize. Their habits, reactions, and behavior often expose their true intentions. For example, someone may speak confidently about loyalty and teamwork, but their actions consistently show selfishness and dishonesty. Sun Tzu believed wise people study actions more than words. In today's world, this lesson is incredibly important because appearances can easily be manipulated through social media, marketing, and image building. Many people present polished versions of themselves publicly while hiding chaos privately. Observation protects you from being easily deceived. Sun Tzu also highlights the importance of trustworthy information. False information leads to poor decisions, wasted energy, and unnecessary conflict. Imagine someone constantly comparing themselves to unrealistic lifestyles online and making life decisions based on appearances instead of reality. Eventually, they feel insecure, financially stressed, and disconnected from their own goals. Sun Tzu teaches that wisdom comes from seeking truth carefully instead of blindly accepting noise and distraction. In modern life, where information spread instantly, the ability to separate truth from illusion has become one of the most valuable skills a person can develop. This chapter also carries a deeper psychological lesson. Self-awareness is a form of intelligence gathering too. Many people study others carefully but never study themselves honestly. They do not question their habits, emotional triggers, fears, or motivations. As a result, they become predictable to stress, temptation, and manipulation. Sun Tzu would argue that the person who understands themselves clearly becomes much harder to control. Knowing your own weaknesses allows you to protect them before life exploits them. Think about how detectives solve mysteries. Rarely does one giant clue suddenly reveal everything. Instead, they gather small pieces of information patiently until the full picture becomes clear. Sun Tzu believed life works the same way. Wise people observe, listen, learn, and think carefully before making important moves. They understand that knowledge gathered quietly can prevent disasters loudly. As you listen to this final chapter, ask yourself, am I making important decisions based on real understanding or assumptions? How often do I observe people and situations carefully before reacting? What information could improve the quality of my life right now? Do I understand my own habits and emotional patterns as deeply as I understand others? These questions matter because the use of spies is ultimately about realizing that awareness, observation, and understanding are forms of power that shape every decision you make. Main points. Information and awareness are powerful advantages in life and decision-making. Careful observation helps people avoid unnecessary mistakes and risks. Actions often reveal more truth than words. Reliable information is essential for wise decisions. Self-awareness protects people from emotional weakness and manipulation. Patience and observation often create better outcomes than impulsive action. Real-life application. Before making major decisions, gather information carefully instead of acting only on emotion, appearances, or assumptions. Practice observing patterns, behaviors, and environments more closely in daily life. Reflective questions. Do I usually react first or observe carefully before acting? What important area of my life currently needs better understanding or research? Am I paying attention to people's actions or only their words? How well do I truly understand my own habits, fears, and emotional triggers? And that was A Timeless Wisdom of the Art of War by Sun Tzu, a book that teaches us that true victory is not about force, but about strategy, discipline, patience, awareness, and self-control. Throughout this audiobook, we explored powerful lessons about planning ahead, understanding people, adapting to change, protecting your energy, mastering emotions, choosing the right battles, and thinking several steps ahead in life. These principles may have been written thousands of years ago for warfare, but they remain incredibly relevant in modern life, business, relationships, and personal growth today. The real question now is this: how will you apply these lessons in your own life? Will you continue reacting emotionally to every challenge, or will you begin thinking like a strategist? Sometimes one small shift in mindset can completely transform the direction of your future. If you enjoyed this audiobook summary and found value in these lessons, make sure to subscribe to Visual Books for more powerful book summaries, timeless wisdom, and life-changing ideas. Like this video, share it with someone who needs these lessons, and comment below with the biggest insight you learned from the Art of War. Your support helps this channel continue bringing valuable knowledge to more people around the world.